Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'll continue bringing you the latest and most dramatic developments in the story of Diep and CEO James, a journey filled with tears, the longing for love, and an unrelenting battle between hope and despair. As you already know, in the previous episode, despite time quietly slipping by, there was still no trace of Diep. James searched in vain, knocking on doors, posting flyers, and chasing every fragile clue, holding on to the faint hope that she might still be alive somewhere out there. And then, in today's episode, a major turning point finally arrives. A sudden clue emerges, revealing that Diep might still be alive, and more than that, she could be held captive or in danger in a remote location. The story begins to shift in a tense and emotional direction, as James doesn't hesitate for even a second before throwing himself into a grueling search. Every detail escalates to a climax, every moment filled with suspense and breathless anticipation. Behind it all is the powerful love James has for Diep, a love so intense that he's willing to risk everything just to bring her back safely. Will this journey finally lead him to where Diep is? Will they be reunited? Or will another unexpected twist await? Stay with us until the end of the video to make sure you don't miss any of the emotional moments in this episode. And as always, if this story has touched your heart, leave a comment below to share your thoughts and predictions about what might happen next. Who knows, maybe your emotions and your faith will become part of the strength that helps James and Diep overcome all the challenges ahead. Detective GC, a seasoned team leader in narcotics and transnational crime investigations, is one of the most respected names in the force, known for his sharp instincts, unwavering principles, and steel-like resolve in every case he handles. He's not one to boast or talk much, but every case he's worked on has left a lasting mark in the investigative community. Within the department, people often refer to him as the sleepless tracker, because he can spend entire nights meticulously reviewing every tiny detail in a case file, each time searching for the elusive red thread connecting seemingly unrelated dots. Recently, he was assigned to lead an operation targeting John, a notorious drug and illegal timber kingpin who has repeatedly evaded capture thanks to a tight, cunning underground network. No one knows John's real background. He appears like a phantom in the world of cross-border trafficking, clever and always using others to do his dirty work. This operation is considered one of the most dangerous manhunts yet, not only involving drugs and illegal timber, but also potentially linked to human trafficking and sophisticated money laundering rings. During the investigation, GC receives unexpected support from an old acquaintance, James, now CEO of a major timber corporation, who was inadvertently drawn into John's web after uncovering signs of illegal activities within his company's supply chain. Though they come from different worlds, one a businessman, the other a cop, James and GC form an unexpectedly strong partnership. Between them is a quiet respect, a wordless trust. James wants to expose John not only to protect his company but also to find Diep, a woman who mysteriously vanished after investigating an unusual shipment. GC agrees to help but warns, if she's alive, I'll find her. But if she's not, you need to prepare yourself. And then fate takes over. During an impromptu survey mission in the remote border forests where signs of illegal activity have been detected, GC and his task force carry out their investigation in total silence. No sirens, no flashing lights, only the wind rustling through old trees and the footsteps of those on a mission for justice. Along a desolate trail covered in dead leaves and slippery rocks, GC suddenly halts. His sharp eyes catch sight of a motionless figure lying near the edge of the grass. It's a young woman. She's lying on her side, her head resting against a tree root, hair matted, her body curled up in filthy, blood-stained clothes. Her pale skin is almost bluish, unclear if from cold or blood loss. Her once beautiful face now looks exhausted, like someone who's endured hunger, fear, and despair for far too long. His instincts, honed over years of field work, tighten in his chest. He doesn't need to check her pulse to know she's still alive. But there's no time to lose. Without hesitation, GC rushes to her side, performs a quick check, then lifts her in his arms. On the way back, the vehicle speeds through the terrain in silence, only the radio announcing, "We're bringing in a critical witness for emergency treatment." Though GC is usually strict about protocols, this time something feels different. He senses that this girl isn't just another random victim somehow. She's connected to the very case he's chasing. At the hospital, doctors confirm she's severely malnourished, suffering from extreme sleep deprivation and possibly temporary memory loss. She has no ID, no companions, and no way to contact anyone. In that moment, despite having witnessed hundreds of similar situations, GC does something unprecedented. He agrees to sign off as her temporary guardian so she can be admitted for treatment, not out of personal attachment, but because something in her expression, even with her eyes closed, stirred something deep within him. In the days that followed, while the girl remained unconscious, GC brought her to his private residence for closer monitoring. His longtime housekeeper, who had worked with his family for over 30 years, was shocked to see her usually rule-bound master bringing home a mysterious young woman. But she knew that if GC had chosen to go against his principles, there must be a deeper reason. So she cared for the girl, not knowing her name, with all the tenderness of a mother. 3 days later, Diep slowly awakened in the dim light of early morning. The room was unfamiliar but clean and peaceful. The faint smell of warm porridge lingered. The ceiling fan turned slowly overhead. She didn't know where she was, nor could she recall how she got there. Fragments of memory drifted in like smoke, running footsteps in the night, screams, gnawing hunger, shadowy figures, and a constant undercurrent of fear. When GC gently asked if she remembered who she was, she simply shook her head. Her eyes flickering with fear and confusion, her voice was faint, barely more than a breath slipping from dry lips. I'm not sure, but deep down, Diep knew she hadn't completely lost her memory. Part of it was still there, hazy, flickering like tiny flames in a fog. They were fragmented images, echoing sounds, fleeting faces that appeared and vanished as though they had never truly existed. It was as if her memories had shattered into drifting pieces, floating helplessly in a raging current, impossible to piece back together into a coherent picture. She felt she had endured something truly terrifying, something that wasn't over yet. The sense of being hunted, watched, stalked like a wild animal was still etched into her mind. Each time she closed her eyes, Diep saw herself running aimlessly, driven by primal survival instincts, with a shadowy figure reaching out behind her, fingers brushing the back of her neck. She couldn't recall the enemy's face, but the chill that ran down her spine at the thought of it was all too real. So when GC continued his questions, not urgently, not accusingly, but with quiet concern, Diep made a decision to hide the truth. She didn't know who this man was, why he helped her, why he didn't ask too much, but she knew one thing: the more she said, the more she risked slipping up. She had long since learned to be wary of everyone. In her not-so-distant past, it was honesty that had once led her straight into danger. Lowering her voice and avoiding his gaze, she gave a random name. "My name is Hoa. I'm from somewhere far away." Her voice trembled, but it created just enough distance. She stuck to a simple story. She got lost. She didn't remember much, only that she had to run, had to escape. Diep kept her expression exhausted, her shoulders slightly hunched, her eyes wandering like someone truly lost in the void of amnesia. But what surprised her most was that GC didn't react. He didn't press her, didn't show suspicion, didn't demand more answers. He simply nodded in silence, with the instincts of someone who had interrogated hundreds of people. He knew she was hiding something. He could tell from the way she hesitated in her words. From the way she bit her lip when he mentioned the past, from the way she avoided eye contact. But he also understood some fears can't be pried open with logic or authority. Some wounds can only be revealed when someone feels truly safe. So instead of probing, GC chose care. He asked the housekeeper to prepare light meals for her, avoiding anything hard to digest. To change the bed sheets daily so the room remained fresh and clean. To draw the curtains in the morning gently so sunlight wouldn't startle her. And to never turn on loud or sudden noises like the TV. He also sent a trusted aide to buy her a few personal items: a toothbrush, face towel, some comfortable clothes, and a small soft-covered notebook, in case she wanted to write anything she remembered. Though he said little, GC watched closely every tiny gesture, every odd reaction. Every slow movement became part of an internal file, like pieces of a case he had yet to name. Diep, though still cautious and guarded, gradually realized that this place was truly peaceful. There were no strangers lurking, no prying eyes. No one asked if she owed anyone, if she was hiding, or if she had done something wrong. For the first time in many dark days, she could lie down on a bed without keeping her shoes within reach to run at any moment. She didn't have to wake in the middle of the night just to check the door lock. She didn't have to sleep on her side just to listen for foreign footsteps. HGC's house, though not grand, had something she desperately longed for: peace. And for the first time, Diep felt the warmth of unconditional kindness. She didn't know who this man was, why he had rescued her, why he was so patient with someone who was practically a stranger. But one thing she knew for certain right now: she had nowhere else to go. She had no one to call, no strength left to keep running. And she wasn't sure how much longer she could survive without rest, without someone reaching out at just the right moment. So when GC suggested she stay for a few more days until she felt stronger, she nodded. Not because she fully trusted him, but because she had no better choice. Yet deep inside, she knew she owed this man a debt, not of money, but of grace. At the gentle suggestion of the housekeeper, Diep agreed to let one of HGC's staff take her out to pick up a few personal items, a couple of more proper outfits, some private essentials, and a bit of light food that suited her taste. She went, carrying a sense of unease in her heart, but knowing she couldn't remain hidden in the shadows forever like an invisible ghost. She needed brief moments to breathe in the outside air, to remind herself that she was still a part of this world, even if just a faint, fading part of it. Only a few minutes after the car had left the gates of HGC's villa, a familiar black car pulled up in front of the house. James stepped out, his stride hurried, his eyes sharp and cold. But beneath it all was a weariness that had built up from days and nights of chasing down leads. He had come to meet GC, to go over the latest intel on a recently uncovered illegal timber route, the newest shipment believed to be a key link to the remaining arms of John's organization. GC greeted James with a quick, firm handshake. Two men, two contrasting styles, yet they shared the same determination, the same silent resolve, and an unyielding pursuit of the truth. They sat down in the study, maps and documents spread across the table, with red marks identifying suspected zones, forest routes, border checkpoints, potential drop points. No one knew that just a few blocks away, Diep was quietly picking out a simple white blouse in a small roadside shop, completely unaware that the very man she had longed to see again, the one who carried so much yearning and pain in his heart, was now only a few hundred meters away. And James, too, had no idea that the woman he had searched the entire world for, the woman he once feared, might no longer be alive, was living peacefully in the very house before him. Only today, she happened to be away. In that moment, fate seemed to play a cruel, ironic trick. If James had arrived just minutes earlier, or if Diep had stayed just a little longer, perhaps they would have met. Perhaps he would have caught a glimpse of her in the kitchen, her presence a spark of life in that quiet space. Perhaps her soft footsteps on the stairs would have made his heart skip a beat. But no, that chance slipped by silently and unnoticed, like a gentle breeze that never quite touched the skin. Perhaps her soft footsteps on the stairs would have made his heart skip a beat. But no, that chance slipped by silently and unnoticed, like a gentle breeze that never quite touched the skin. After wrapping up the meeting with GC regarding the recently discovered illegal timber shipment, James left the house with a heavy heart. The investigation was progressing well. The links in John's smuggling network were gradually being exposed, but inside James, one burden refused to lift: Diep's mysterious disappearance. Even though he was now playing a crucial part in dismantling an underground criminal ring, even though early victories had been achieved, none of it seemed to matter if he couldn't find her. To James, every triumph felt hollow without her by his side. His black car rolled silently down the paved road toward the city center. But instead of heading home or to the office, James took a different turn, straight toward the police station. The very place that had been supporting his search for Diep over the past several weeks. He clung to a faint glimmer of hope that perhaps someone had seen something new, that maybe, just maybe, today would be the day a clue finally surfaced. When he entered the station, a familiar officer escorted him into the information reception room. Over the past few weeks, this place had become all too familiar: the stacks of case files, maps covering the walls, red ink notes that felt like cuts to the heart every time he saw the words, "Whereabouts unknown." The investigator reviewed the case, flipped through the documents, and explained that the authorities had expanded the search to surrounding areas, including mountain paths, small towns, and district hospitals, but still, no one had reported seeing a woman matching the description. James had provided. That final statement, though delivered gently, without harshness, was enough to make James lower his head in quiet despair. Another day of hope lost, another trip ending in silence. With empty hands and a heart that throbbed with unanswered questions, they echoed in his mind without pause. Where is she? Is she safe? Does she still remember me? Does she know that someone is still out there, searching for her? Every single day, every hour, no one had to tell him to stop. But James refused to give up, because deep inside, he had never once believed that Diep was gone. No, he believed she was still alive, somewhere, maybe hurt, maybe without her memory, or maybe just too afraid to return. But whatever the reason, James was certain she still existed in this world. And when she felt strong enough, when she was safe enough, she would find her way back. He kept telling himself, if she's still alive, she will try to come back. If she still remembers me, she will return, no matter what it takes. And if she can't, then I'll be the one to find her, no matter what it costs, no matter how long it takes. Unable to bear the growing emptiness in his heart, James made the decision to return to the small wooden house, the place that once held the most peaceful moments of his life with Diep. It wasn't just a house, it was a sanctuary of memories, filled with sweet moments and the simple, priceless days they had built together. He wanted to care for it again, to clean each corner, trim every branch as a quiet way to prepare, so that if one day Diep returned, the house would still be intact, clean, and ready to welcome her back into his arms. But as soon as James stepped into the yard, his heart sank. The house, long devoid of Diep's presence, now wore a blanket of sorrow. There was no warmth in the way the furniture was ranged by her gentle hands, no faint scent of her cooking from the kitchen each afternoon. The home had aged, worn and lacking the soft touch that once made it feel like her. The flower pots on the porch were withered. The vegetable garden she used to tend was now overtaken by weeds, and in the air still lingered the faint trace of the fragrance Diep always used. The two dogs in the yard, Bon and Mitt, though cared for by James's staff, immediately rushed to him upon seeing him, their eyes filled with sorrow, their bodies thin and lifeless. It was as if they, too, understood that Diep's absence wasn't just a long trip, but a profound, unspeakable loss. Mitt lay limp by the door, uninterested in food. While Bon lingered near the rose bush where Diep used to sit, James knelt and gently stroked them, feeling like he was soothing his own broken heart. Unable to let the house fade into ruin, he rolled up his sleeves and began to work. He bathed the dogs, cooked porridge for them, swept the yard, and washed each dish and cup in the kitchen. He gathered fallen petals, plucked weeds from the garden beds, and tended to the plants Diep once lovingly grew, each movement filled with care and tenderness. Under his hands, things slowly began to brighten, just a little, but enough to breathe life back into the place. As night fell, James sat alone on the porch, beside the freshly watered flowers. With the two dogs curled up asleep, he looked up at the dark sky, pain twisting in his chest as he remembered Diep's eyes, her soft smile, her quiet laughter in the afternoons. This house had once been hers, had once been their world. And now, only he remained, surrounded by silent memories. James didn't know where Diep was. He didn't know if she still remembered him. But he had never let go of hope. He believed that somehow, if she was still alive, she would feel it. That there was someone still waiting for her return. And this place, the little wooden house, nestled among the trees, would always be here, a peaceful resting place where every pain could be soothed, a place where she could return anytime. Just as James finished tending to the garden and sat quietly on the porch, as he had done so many times before, silently hoping for a miracle, the sudden ringing of his phone pierced the stillness. It was an emergency call from Jen's mother, the woman currently looking after the young son he shares with Diep during her disappearance. Her panicked voice shot through the line, making James shoot to his feet. James, get to the hospital now. The boy's running a high fever. He's struggling to breathe. They've taken him into the emergency room. James felt his throat tighten, his chest constricting like it was being crushed. Without a second of hesitation, he rushed to his car and sped into the night. His heart overwhelmed, torn between fear for his child and the aching longing for Diep that never let go. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Diep was still staying at HGC's house, still under the name Hoa, still unaware that James had been searching for her day and night, and still unaware that her heart, the love she had once known, was still being waited for. But after days of rest and gentle care, strange dreams began to return, vague but hauntingly familiar. She saw flashes of a wooden house nestled in the forest, heard an urgent voice calling her name, and saw the eyes of a man she could not name, but who felt painfully close. Could this be the beginning of her memory returning? Could James and Diep overcome the cruel twists of fate and find their way back to each other again? And more urgently, would their little son, now lying in the emergency room, survive the crisis long enough to one day see both his parents reunited? All of these answers remain unknown. Stay tuned for the next emotional and unexpected chapter where forgotten memories may awaken, and the journey between James and Diep enters a new phase filled with trials and hope.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người. Mọi người ơi, thì hiện tại kênh của mình đã lên video tiếp theo về nội dung của câu chuyện Lý Tự Diệp và CEO James rồi mọi người nhé. Thì mọi người có thể theo dõi tập phim hôm nay và cũng có thể biết diễn biến là hiện tại thì Diệp thì chúng ta đã biết là đã an toàn và hiện tại đang ở nhà Đức rồi. Tuy nhiên thì trí nhớ của Diệp thì nó vẫn chưa được ổn định. Vì thế cô vẫn đang ở nhà Đức với cái tên là Hoa. Và liệu Diệp cũng như là mang cái tên Hoa ở nhà Đức thì sẽ có diễn biến gì tiếp theo, và liệu James và Diệp có thể đoàn tụ lại với nhau không, trong khi James lại đang nhận được một cái tin rất là sốc là con của mình đang bệnh lắm. Vậy thì liệu diễn biến câu chuyện sẽ đi đến đâu thì mời mọi người cùng đón xem vào tập tiếp theo vào ngày mai nha. Và mọi người ơi, hy vọng rằng mọi người hãy follow kênh, sau đó là bật chuông thông báo lên để có thể xem những video mới nhất mà kênh mình ra, cũng như hãy để lại bình luận để chia sẻ ý kiến của bạn ở dưới phần bình luận nhé.